So, Dr. Bright, I'm so excited to talk to you today about some things regarding butter and fat and our hormone health. So, if you don't mind to just go over your background and how you came to find out that fat and cholesterol is what women especially need more of.
Okay, so I'm an osteopath and naturopath, and I went carnivore at 52 when I went into menopause. I gained a few pounds, and I looked up menopause, and I was horrified by what I saw, the symptoms associated with menopause, and I wrote a book about it, with stemming from my research, and it made me understand that our adrenal glands produce all the hormones we need from cholesterol, that the estrogen and progesterone receptors that need estrogen and progesterone attached to them continue as they do throughout our lives to get steroid hormones from adrenal production. Ovarian production is only necessary for fertility, so only if you want to have a baby. So all this association with bone osteoporosis, cognitive function, saggy breasts, vaginal dryness, et cetera, where they found estrogen and progesterone receptors in tissue is absolutely supplied by adrenal steroid hormone production. So because steroid hormones are made out of cholesterol, I upped the fat in my diet and found that, lo and behold, I lost a few pounds I gained and I felt great. And vegetables had already not been very present in my diet. I just cut the rest out and ate high-fat carnivore ever since.
It's really amazing because we have to be our own science experiments. And in the beginning, for
Mhm.
me, I thought I was eating 80-20, 80% fat, 20% protein, but it turns out that I wasn't really. I wasn't tracking. So it was kind of hard to know that. And when I upped it to high fat, I was about 15 pounds from my goal, lost 8 pounds in about 2.5 weeks, and felt really great until I quit sleeping.
Mhm.
And in discussions with you, we have found that it is perhaps the fact that my weight, I was at my optimal weight and my body was kind of fighting back with that fat. So our bodies will tell us if we're eating too much, right?
Yeah, yeah, it'll tell us if we're eating, and it will hold on to weight if you need weight. I mean, if you need energy or you need a stress response, it will hold on to weight. So if you have lost the weight that you, I guess, had from a previous diet or some, deficiency, you lost the excess and your body will regulate itself. It sounds like it's regulated itself perfectly. So you would want less fat.
So why is it, because I've heard you talk about this before, that you should keep some butter on your nightstand. If you wake up in the middle of the night, it'll help you go back to sleep. Why is it that that works?
It could be fat. It doesn't have to be butter in a nightstand because you wake up. People who wake up in the night, they're waking up because of stress response. So our cortisol and TSH is secreted, starts being secreted at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's supposed to rise very gently until it peaks between 7 and 9 in the morning. Most people have stress issues, adrenal issues, or nutrient issues, and that will cause a cortisol spike earlier. So you wake up and the crash, your liver produces a bunch of sugar and then you crash. It's like you have reactive hypoglycemia during your sleep. So if you eat a little something, and fat is good because it lowers cortisol and replenishes cortisol, you go back to sleep faster. So it doesn't have to be butter, it just has to be fat or fatty meat.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But again, nobody keeps fatty meat on their nightstand.
Well, people with dogs, I say put it in something,
Yeah, it's
you
true.
could put fatty meat on your
Yeah,
nightstand. Butter may melt. I mean, it depends on where you live, right?
it's
If you're
true.
close to the equator, it'll melt.
That's true. And I can say for sure that when I wasn't sleeping well, the butter did help me. I started the Lion Diet January 1st. I wanted to
Hmm.
eliminate dairy because I go a little overboard with dairy sometimes. It's one of those addictive things. I have an addictive tendency. I came from eating disordered background and binge
Hmm.
eating. And so cheese can definitely be an issue for me. So I eliminated everything this month and have had to add in more tallow and things like that. So I'm not keeping butter on my nightstand anymore. But the interesting thing is that I started sleeping through the night when I cut
Hmm.
out dairy. So I'm really hoping that it's not the dairy that was keeping me up. I'm hoping that it was because I was eating higher fat than I needed. So there's some discussion going on in the carnivore community about high fat carnivore versus kind of a medium fat carnivore. Because let's be clear, there is probably almost no carnivore diet that is going to be a low fat diet unless you're eating only chicken, which nobody would recommend. So we're talking
Right.
about a high fat carnivore diet versus a very high fat carnivore diet. And there's
Hmm.
discussion about when you add fat in, it doesn't give your body a chance to burn your own body fat. And so there's not arguing, but there's discussions going back and forth with people in the
Right.
carnivore community about that. What's your take on that?
Well, I haven't seen that. So I mean, obviously I specialize in endocrine function. So people who don't lose weight on a high fat carnivore diet may have thyroid or adrenal issues. If you have a stress response, you're going to hold on to weight because weight is energy. That's why I believe that you have to have a small amount of fat on you so that you can handle stress. People who are bone lean can't handle stress because stress hormones are made out of fat. We need a little bit of fat. When I prepare a protocol, it's never the protein and the fat make up a certain what the person needs as far as the macronutrients. It's never going to be a higher calorie intake because it's higher fat. So that comes from the whole fat makes you fat thing. The body has an easier time of turning fat into energy. It depends on the person's sex also, because women need more fat, make more hormones than men. So more cholesterol to make those hormones. Maybe it has a gender issue, to do with how much fat you need or how much stress you've had in your life and how much you need to restore your stress response. It depends on all kinds of stuff. So
if you're going to start a higher fat version of carnivore, you should make sure your calories are still about the same for what works for you. You shouldn't add the stick of butter on top of everything you're already eating for the day. If you're a woman and you're already eating 2,000 calories, do you want to add a whole stick of butter on top?
It depends on how tall you are. It depends on what you do during the day. It depends on, if I'm seeing 8 clients in the day, I have a plate of my beef jerky and each piece of it has a piece of butter on it, because my brain is working, burning a lot of calories. I guess I hate the word calories, but I'm using a lot of energy, sympathetic nervous system energy, to respond and to think and to focus. So I'm probably eating more fat on those days than I am regularly, even when I go paddleboarding. So I just really think it depends. I think a person's height, their frame dictates a certain amount of energy requirement. And then after that, you have to go for lifestyle.
Yeah. And we're all kind of science experimenting on ourselves and trying to figure it out. I have seen women who say they're still eating the same amount of food they were eating, and then they add a stick of butter on top of that, and that's not working for them. And I don't really like to talk about calories either, but for me in the beginning, when I started, because of the background that I came from of chronic undereating or binging and all of that, I did. Yeah. Cause I was eating basically 2 hamburgers a day, only every other day. And I was fasting every other day and I was gaining weight. It was for the first 8 months. So I tell people the first 30 or 60 days, don't count anything. Just eat 3 nourishing meals a day. Don't fast at all. Fix your body, heal your body, nourish your body. And then we can assess the situation at like 60 days and see, are you losing weight? Are you gaining weight? How are you feeling? And then some people do need to track just for a little while so they can get a visual of what an appropriate amount of food looks like. So important, because for me, those 2 hamburger patties were enough because it made me feel full. But that's because I was so used to under eating. I came from like Weight Watchers and juicing. And so for me, I was hungry all the time. I was filling up with stuff that didn't really nourish me and make me feel full. So 2 hamburger patties in a day felt like more than enough for me. And even though I like to think I'm pretty smart, in my head, I didn't look at those 2 hamburger patties and think that is not enough food for me. But now I look at my plate, with a giant ribeye on it and some beef bacon next to it, and that looks like a meal. And I do that twice a day. And so it's hard. It's hard for people sometimes. So calories are a way to measure and a way for people to understand how much food they should be eating if they don't already know. And I think so many people's hunger cues are so broken from all of the processed junk food.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, it makes it really difficult. Okay, so as a carnivore doctor, what does a day of eating look like for you?
Okay, I wake up in the morning and I have a hunk of butter in my decaf. So my daughter turned me on to NutriBullet, which I never knew of before. We used to just blend it. So boom, we each have, husband and I have, I'd say about 25, 30 grams of butter in our decaf. And then I'll have a snack, maybe with a piece of jerky and butter midday. And then, snack around 11. And then we have, a steak for lunch. Depending upon if I'm very active that day, I'll add butter to it. If I'm not very active, I might not. It depends on the fat content of the steak too. And then I'll have a snack because I'm working a lot. Again, probably beef jerky. I really just like beef most. I'm not really into pork right now. We have bacon. I have bacon in Scotland. My husband likes a little bit of pork once in a while, but it's mostly beef. Dinner the same, a steak for dinner, and I'll definitely have a bedtime snack.
And that's interesting because a lot of carnivores don't snack. I tend to snack just a little bit also, jerky, same thing as you. I actually have really thin slices of ribeye downstairs in my dehydrator, dehydrating right now. It's become my favorite thing, especially with the lion diet.
But yeah, definitely. I use diaphragm. That's my favorite cut because it's really fatty. When I take it out of the dehydrator, it's got globs of fat on it. I mean,
Yes.
skirt steak,
Oh,
hanger
I'll
steak.
have to look for some of that. Yeah, they have at Walmart here, they have the really thin slices of ribeye. And the guy said they only get 4 of those packages like every 3 days. And I said, 4 cases or 4 packages? And he said 4 packages and they go quick. And yesterday when I went in, I made a special trip. And when I went in, a lady was picking one up. So I grabbed the other 3. So one last question. And this is about an incident in America that I'm just trying to get some doctors' opinions on because, well, you'll see why. So recently, in the last little while, the government has appointed a new person to the U.S. Dietary Guidelines Committee for 2025, and her name is Fatima Stanford. And there is a 60-minute clip of her people are just very upset about. And basically what she said, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember the exact words, but this is pretty close. Basically what she said is that, and this, she did say this, obesity is genetic. And that if you have parents that are obese, you are 50 to 85% more likely to be obese, regardless of diet, exercise, sleep, and stress levels. What do you think?
I wonder what medication they're going to try to sell to treat this supposed illness. No, it's, I would say, well, I believe in epigenetics, just like you can be diabetic because your parents are diabetic, not because it's genetics, because your parents are eating Hostess Twinkies and their blood sugar levels were irregular when you were born, and therefore you have a tendency to crave sugar too. So that's very, or your immune system is affected by that. Absolutely not. That's pretty scary. Yes, an illness is something that can be treated with medication, and we know that the medical industry thrives on selling medication. So no, lifestyle changes and food, changing what you eat is not something that is monetarily beneficial to the industry. Yeah.
Yeah. And she is referring to it as a disease and saying that people have obesity, not that they are obese. And I think if you're overweight and you're not like actively sick from it and you're okay with that, then fine. But let's not lump it in with things like cancer that people are dying from. And aside from the treatments that we have, they can't do anything about it. Let's not lump something that all you have to do is get off the sugar addiction and the processed foods and things like that and make some real lifestyle changes to fix it. Let's not lump that in with something like cancer.
Yeah. Well, they do the same with diabetes, right? And alcoholism. And substance abuse, which are blood sugar issues. So yes, lifestyle changes are phenomenal for dietary changes are phenomenal for any health issue.
Yeah. And it's the sugar and carb thing is absolutely an addiction. It's absolutely an addiction. And we don't talk about that enough either, about how hard it is. I know that it's hard. I did it. I ate 20 cupcakes in 36 hours the day before I started carnivore. I get it. It's hard. I mean, that's the kind of person that I was when I wasn't super restrictive. I was doing that. And so I understand, and it is hard, but it can be done. And people can lose weight if they change what they're eating. We can't sit down with a whole 2 liter of soda and a giant pizza and then say it's my genes that's causing me to feel this way or look this way. That is not okay.
Trying to make a lot of people feel like they're doing the right thing. So the soda industry and the pizza industry, the carb industry also benefits from this kind of stuff.
It's really just terrible. And if we don't do something soon, these are going to be the guidelines are going to stay the same for 2025. And it's going to take an awful lot to get those things changed.
Well, unfortunately, I think McGovern's dietary czar was a Seventh-day Adventist who was a vegetarian. So It's been going that way for a long time. If you look at the food plate from 1945, it was equal fat, meat, carb. It was round. So it's, yeah, we have a lot of work to do to turn it back.
Okay, so can you tell people where to find you? Anything about you you'd like people to know?
Oh, well, my website is elizbright.com, and you can contact me on the contact sheet on my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it. You have been a plethora of information and a joy to talk to.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it too.